The Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
Welcome to Utah's longest-running sports podcast. This is Dog and Deuce. Every week, we are right here to take a deep dive into the Utah Jazz, the Utes, Cougars, Aggies, and everything in between. On this episode, we're kicking it off with Utah Jazz basketball. Even a flaming plane engine and emergency landing couldn't stop the Jazz from extending their win streak to 7. We'll recap the week that was and preview their upcoming games. Plus, the Runnin' Utes finally have their new coach. The Final Four causes a stir in the media, and it's opening day for Major League Baseball. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming your way on Dog and Deuce number 362.
Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to episode 362 of the Dog and Deuce Show. If you want to know more, and I sure hope you do, follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
You can watch this show all weekend long on Cape Hatter TV, or if you're in southern Utah, you can watch on Backcountry TV. Or, as always, you can listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would love to hear from you. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
This is episode 362. If you're joining us on YouTube, thank you. Welcome. Go ahead and subscribe. Tap that little bell so you'll be notified every time we have a new episode up. And, of course, leave a comment, do the like, do the whole YouTube thing. That really helps us get in front of other people, and we just love the interaction as well. Lots to talk about today. The Utah Jazz are safe and sound. And I was thinking about this. So they were taking off to fly to Memphis. And, I mean, I think it was just a couple minutes into the flight, if I'm not mistaken. The plane had a flock of birds fly into the engine. And the engine, I mean, according to the players, sounded like an explosion. The engine was on fire. They lost altitude. They started drifting to the left. And it sounds like it was a pretty horrific experience. They still managed to fly out. I don't know if it was later that day or the next day, and get a win against Memphis in a very hard-fought game. I don't know, man. Like, have you? And I put this out on Twitter, and I got some actually pretty scary stories. I kind of wish I didn't even ask. But have you ever had a scary flight, like a terrifying experience on an airplane?
Nothing like that. I mean, I think I've had just kind of the usual, drops in elevation, turbulence type things. Nothing. I feel like I was in a plane once flying into Oakland that hit a bird, but we were so close to landing, it didn't really. Or maybe it didn't hit anything and cause any damage, but nothing major like this. What about yourself?
I mean, I have. So my son, he is, I didn't know this. I've flown with him forever. He's 16 years old. I've flown with him since he was a baby. And he told me just recently that he is terrified of birds hitting the plane. And he says that it's a huge anxiety for him. And he almost feels like it's a matter of time. Like eventually it's going to happen if he flies enough, which is not true, but still, I mean, that's pretty scary. So I'm hoping he doesn't hear this story because it sounds like it's pretty horrific. I've had scary flights. Looking back, it's probably not as scary as it was in the moment, but I had a flight where, I was on a shoot where we were it's like 3 cities in 4 days type thing. Like just run, shoot, film. And then it was at the last leg and we were flying into Virginia on a little tiny plane. The tiny planes are the ones that scare me the most. I don't know about you, but for me, like they feel less stable. And we were flying into Virginia and we were the last plane that was allowed to land because the wind was so bad. And you could feel like it was a rough flight. And we're coming in, and right as we're coming in, the wind must have hit it just perfectly because we are just about to land. And the plane tilts to the left, like massive, like at a crazy angle. I thought the wing was going to catch the runway Like, I don't know how it didn't. It was that close. So that's about it for me. I mean, looking back, it probably wasn't as scary as I thought.
That's pretty hairy. That sounds pretty hairy.
It was scary, man.
I mean, and maybe I don't know, like, I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing major. I mean, I've had them bounce it coming in,
Yeah.
or you bounce, stuff like that, but nothing like that or like the Jazz experience. I'm just glad it was, I mean, typically if you're going to get hit by a bird, it's landing or takeoff. And, right there when you exit our airport, you're kind of out over the Great Salt Lake, which is a migratory bird pattern. So I don't know which son you're talking about, but I understand that. I feel like that's a possibility every time I come into or come out of Salt Lake City. I mean, yeah. I'm just glad we're not discussing a bigger level tragedy, because it sounds like, at least for a few minutes, that there was, calls being made or whatever, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, have you ever done that? I mean, well, it sounds like you haven't been in anything too bad, but I've done that where I've been texting people I love, being like, hey, just in case things are getting a little hairball here, I just want you to know I love you. Right. That's bad when those things are happening, and that happened on that flight. So to me, it's scary. I mean, when I put this out on Twitter, I actually got multiple. This is scarier to me than birds. I got multiple people who responded saying that as they're coming in for a landing, the plane immediately took off again because the runway wasn't clear like they originally said. Multiple. How many times can that possibly happen? That gives me zero confidence in the air traffic control.
Do you remember, there's a movie, you're a movie buff, I'm not. I think it's John Cusack, where it's like a competition to be the air traffic controllers out in New York.
I haven't seen it.
At JFK. What? Man, you got to do some research, buddy. John Cusack, if you haven't seen every John Cusack film, can you even be a film buff?
Probably not.
That's kind of like a thing that I see, at least from film buffs, is like, which is your favorite John Cusack movie?
I mean, he's good. He's fine.
Come on.
He's fine.
What's the one where he's the assassin? That's great.
Oh,
Gross Point Blank.
Yeah. That's good. It's good. I like him.
High Fidelity.
1408 is a great film. It's a horror movie he's in. Yeah, the only thing I know about air traffic control, it was on Breaking Bad. Have you watched Breaking Bad? Okay,
not enough to know what you're discussing. No.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. They went through a traumatic event. They still managed to get back on the flight. Donovan Mitchell was not there, and I think it's kind of assumed that Donovan already, it's been documented, he doesn't like to fly. He gets nervous with turbulence. So I think it's kind of assumed, even though they didn't officially state, that he was too shaken up to get back on the plane. Absolutely no judgment here, man. Especially, I at the time when they said he wasn't going to join the team, I understood then. But even after hearing these firsthand accounts, which came after the game last night, and just how scary it was, I really don't blame him now. Because if you're already afraid to fly, and you hear an explosion while you're midair, and the engine's on fire, yeah, dude, I'm not getting back on a plane immediately. Are you kidding me? I'm worried for him coming up down the road when they got to go on road trips.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does add an extra dimension that Jazz fans wouldn't have wanted. I reached out to Royce White. I don't know if you remember him. He was the Iowa State Cyclone. High draft pick. I think it's 7 or 8, maybe, or 13, something like that in the first round. Trying to get him to come on, but I haven't heard back because he wouldn't fly. He wanted to take the bus game to game, and it sort of, because of his anxiety of flying, and sort of derailed his NBA career because they weren't willing to accommodate. So it's nice to see that the Jazz aren't at least pushing him in a way that could cause more trauma, right?
Right.
But I was hoping to get in touch with him, because it would be interesting to get someone's perspective. I mean, I don't understand a full throttle fear of flying, but every time I get on a plane, I'm like, I do sort of think about how ridiculously weird it is that you're flying in a metal tube with 200 other humans who you don't really know. And it's just so I my mind sort of tends to wander that way, but never what it sounds like. The severity that the other individuals deal with,
Turbulence used to bother me, but I kind of had to convince myself that the plane is not just going to drop out of the sky when it hits turbulence. It's not designed to do that. And I kind of have talked myself out of that. But to go through something like that and then go and get a hard fought win when it was, the outcome was very much in doubt throughout the fourth quarter, and to dig deep like that is very impressive. And I don't know if I could perform a regular, just dumb desk job after going through something like that. But here's what I was wondering, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this. I wonder if going through something traumatic like this could actually bring them closer together as a group. I mean, this is already a tight-knit group as it is. Obviously, there was the rift between Donovan and Rudy, which, from an outside perspective, seems to have fixed itself, or at least is they've managed to get a working relationship, which is great. But I wonder if something like this will actually bring the team even closer together. I mean, I don't know if you've been through anything traumatic or life-threatening, but I have. And when it happens, the person or the people you experience it with, you really do feel closer to those people.
Yeah, I think that's a good point that I hadn't really thought of. I mean, it definitely, anytime, like you say, you experience something that has a super emotional reaction, with those individuals. Yeah, I think it does bring you closer together. I mean, and like you say, I thought for sure once this, and then they get on the plane and arrive late on Wednesday night in Memphis, that we would see, a team that struggled, mightily. And while the 111-107 score, it really makes it seem a little closer than it ever was. It was sort of a late, third quarter. They had a bad third quarter, allowed them to get close, and then just destroyed the fourth quarter as far as the Jazz are concerned in scoring. But the Grizzlies don't go away, right? And that's good. Like, this is one of those things where you get team unity, team building upon team building with the flight, and then, dealing with a sort of tough, scratchy, scrappy opponent who's not going to let you run away from them once you get out by 10 or 15 points.
Yeah, plus defensively, Memphis is really good. I was very impressed with their defense at times. That's a team. I mean, we've been talking about this for weeks. The Jazz need wins like this. They need to win close games. They need to be in close games. So come playoff time, when the defense ramps up and the competition gets tougher, they know they can do it. And so, this is an important game. I mean, you look at it in the Grizzlies, I think they're around 500, and you're thinking, I mean, it's an okay win. But to me, this is actually a much better win than it seems, because, first of all, you went through that traumatic event. Second of all, it's a close game. Third of all, the Grizzlies are tough. I mean, like, their defense is good. Ja Morant, I tell you what, man, watching that kid play, he is fun to watch. When he is really turning it on, he's fun to watch. Usually, when you play a tough series against a team in the playoffs, or you just happen to have like a back-to-back against a team, usually I come out on the other side kind of disliking that team even more. But after this little mini series that we played against the Grizzlies 3 times in 4 games, I actually have more respect for the Grizzlies than I did even a week ago, which is saying something. I really like that organization. I really like that team. I like what they put together, and I like that young star in Ja Morant. I think they're a fun team to watch.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about all the things, when you look back on this, if you just had the full, win-loss record, game, WW, and you looked back on this game, on March 31st game versus the Grizzlies, it wouldn't really jump out to you as a possible important win. But with everything going against them, the plane, Donovan not being in the lineup, a scrappy Memphis team that's willing to mix it up and isn't intimidated by Rudy Gobert because of Valanciunas, it could be sort of one of those seminal moment wins, right? That you just overlook on the calendar. But if you reflect on the previous couple days and playing them 3 times in 4 nights, I mean, we both had them going 3-1 just based on that. Everything going against them for the Jazz spot the game last night was, magnificent, really.
Yeah. I think it's a great win. I really do. I mean, like we said, it's tough to beat a team that many times in a row. Like, it's just not easy to do because the familiarity, and they learn how to game plan. And plus, like I said, Memphis's defense is that's going to keep them in a lot of games. And I think you're going to see that. I mean, this is going to be a team, if they can keep that core together, this is going to be a team, they need to add a couple pieces, but they're going to be in the playoff picture, and they could be I don't know if I'd say power, but I think they could be a team that is consistently a thorn in the sides of some of the better teams over the next few years. I just think they're a lot of fun to watch, and I have a lot of respect for them. Good win. I think it's a good, solid win. Let's move on. Let's talk about the next four. The next two are at home. Then you follow those up with 2 on the road. This is where it gets a little tougher for the Jazz. They have Chicago and Orlando at home. Shouldn't have too much trouble with those guys. But then you go on the road to face Dallas and Phoenix on a back-to-back. Or not a back-to-back, excuse me. It's Phoenix and Portland on a back-to-back. But we're not going to go to the Portland game because we will be recording by the time they reach that one. So we'll preview that one next week. What do you got for these guys? I mean, let's see. Last week we both had them going 3-1. The week before that, I think we had them going 3-1. Is that right?
I had them 2-2. You had them
3-1. So I mean, they're consistently, as they've done all year, they're exceeding our expectations. This is going to be a little bit tougher. I mean, Dallas, I know that they're not Dallas of last year, but they're still tough. And they still got for Jazz fans, thank God JJ Barea is not playing, right? Because that dude was just a Jazz killer and has been for years. So what do you got, though, man? Like, this is a little bit tougher.
I mean, I think you're right. Look, the Bulls and Magic shouldn't present much of a challenge, but it is the NBA, right? So we'll assume they're going to go those two. I mean, for me, the real question with the Mavericks is, will JJ Redick be in the lineup? They picked him up off waivers, and he hasn't played a game for him yet, and he doesn't seem super interested in getting there as quick as possible, which, whatever, your call. If you can do it, do it. And then the Suns game, Devin Booker, Jay Crowder, DeAndre Ayton, they're playing excellent, right? I mean, they are in second place, if my memory. Yeah, so they're right following the Jazz 3 games back. That's an important one. I mean, you can pick up a full game in one night. I have the Jazz going 2-2. Like, eventually, I gotta think just the pure numbers of it catches up with them. And I don't really want to be stat guy. So if I could, I would have to, reevaluate after how they played versus the Bulls and the Magic. But since we're forecasting a week out, I have them going 2-2. At the best, it could be 3-1. If they pull off another 4-0, man, it's looking even more and more impressive as we move on throughout the rest of the season.
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, I don't want to be a downer, but the Jazz have been very fortunate, and I understand, like, the Jazz have the best record against 500 and above teams, but I really don't feel like that tells the whole story, because it seems like there were a lot of those games when they're playing some of these really good teams where they didn't have their star player or 2-star players, or in Brooklyn's case, all of them, all 4 of them. So I'm not, like, I don't want to be a downer, but it just seems like they have been very fortunate. And who knows what's going to happen? Is Phoenix going to rest a bunch of guys because they don't want to play the Jazz, which has happened many times? I doubt it, because I think Phoenix has, man, as an organization, as players, and as a fan base, I think they have more of a chip on their shoulders than the Jazz do. And that's saying something. Think about that for a second.
That's a bold claim. They're coming bold. I mean, let's not forget the Nets picked up LaMarcus Aldridge, too. It's just absurd, the level of...
They're buying a title, man. I mean, they're at the point now where they're not even hiding it. Like, it used to be like, we'll get LeBron and we'll get Dwayne Wade. And we'll get these dudes in Miami, get them on a team. But, they're still in it. It's still kind of pure. But now it's just like, they don't even care. It's like, just buyout market. They're just going to get everybody.
Do you really need that many? I mean, I thought when they got Harden, we said they were, probably the favorites, or if not the favorites out of the East. Then they add Blake Griffin. Now they're adding LaMarcus Aldridge. I mean, when is like Karl Malone coming off out of retirement to add him to the lineup too? Or Gary Payton or someone, Charles Barkley, here he comes. He's good for 8 minutes, like
let's get Tim Duncan in there, man.
I mean, it's the level of absurdity. Well, I mean, again, if you can do it, do it. But the level of absurdity of teams, players flocking to, I mean, and this is even more funny, a Harden, Kyrie, Kevin Durant run team. Not exactly, I mean, they're pros and they're all badass players, but sort of other complications come with being on their team. At least they have in the past. And now they're just like, whatever. We're going to get 10 possible future Hall of Famers and see if we can't give it a run.
It's so stupid. And Kevin Durant right now he's just proven again what thin skin he has in these weird direct messages he sent to Michael Rappaport, which is so like, it's almost like, was this an early April Fool's joke? Because they were so bad and so dumb and so petty. And I don't even know what he was pissed about.
I'm sure Michael Rappaport was saying like, geez, KD, two other future Hall of Famers and you wasn't good enough. You have to add 2 more perennial all-stars. I don't know.
Well, Rappaport was being Rappaport. That's why I love him, because he's just loud and obnoxious, and I get why he might rub people the wrong way, but I think he's hilarious. And if that's what he was saying, he's not wrong. And for KD to DM him these crazy homophobic and angry and racist tweets, I guess they were Instagram direct messages. Unbelievable. I mean, what is wrong with Kevin Durant? It's amazing to me that as triggered as he gets to where he creates burner accounts to reply to guys and is just so thin-skinned, it's amazing to me that he is so clutch on the court, because usually if you're a head case like that, you're not. You're a head case everywhere in your life.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the top 3 I'd want taking the shot last second, right?
Absolutely.
But it is. I mean, he is that unique. And maybe this is why the Harden, Kyrie, Durant thing works, is they all just sort of accept each other at very face value.
Probably.
Like the most extreme face value you can ever imagine, and just want to go play ball. It is weird, though. I mean, as we move on and get older in life, sort of the younger crop of players who have the most as far as financial payments given to them for playing basketball also have what appears to be the thinnest skin when it comes to criticism of anything they do, not just on the court.
Right.
I mean, anything. So
James,
it's weird.
Think about this.
Weird.
Just think about this for a second. Of those big 3 in Brooklyn, James Harden seems to be the most mature. What planet is this? Am I even on Earth anymore? What is going on? This has to be a simulation. It doesn't make any sense. This is a joke, man. Unbelievable. Anyway, I got sidetracked there. I'm going to go 3-1 for the Jazz next 4.
Who do you think that loss is? I mean, obviously
Phoenix.
My losses are Dallas and Phoenix. Which one of those, I guess, if you're going to pick, are you picking on a stinker?
Phoenix, because it's on the road. But I think even if they lose, as long as they don't get blown out, but if they lose to Phoenix in a close game, I'm okay with it. I think it's important that they get those close games like we've been talking about. Play these tough teams.
It was also nice with the absence of Donovan Mitchell to see, Boyan come around last night as far as shooting, and Clarkson return to form, and Rudy just being Rudy, and Mike Conley. Look, I mean, these little, times where Donovan's not in the game can be very productive for future moments, because the likelihood is, as we get in the playoffs, one of the pieces, if not more, are going to get in foul trouble or something along those ways. So it's good to sort of, develop the chemistry without Donovan on the floor, and, to get a win versus the Grizzlies, solid. Everyone played pretty dang well, right? I mean, we talked about it, better than I expected given the ordeals they had gone through over the previous 24 hours. So, yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. 3-1 doesn't seem out of the question. I just don't know, back to back, or 2-day stretch of those two teams coming off what they have. I gotta think there's a letdown, a couple 2-game winning streak coming, just human nature.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that letdown is what we saw a couple weeks ago, going into the All-Star break and then coming out. I mean, I'm just hoping. Who knows? I mean, in all likelihood, I think Rudy Tomjanovich, I cite this all the time, but I think he said that there are 2 to 3 storms that you have to weather every single season. And we've seen one. Well, I guess we've seen 2, because to start out, they did not look great to start out. So maybe we've seen 2. I hope that's it, man. Because we're coming into the home stretch here. We don't have a whole lot of games left, so they can't afford to be dropping any more games. Because, like you said, and I agree 100%, they need that number 1 seed so badly. It's very important this year, especially. Okay, anything else on the Jazz front you want to hit on, or?
No, just glad they're safe, and let's see how the next 4 games go, right? I mean, impressive wins, and let's keep the momentum going, hopefully.
Let's do
There's
it.
not really much to be super critical of. They were challenged, they responded. When they weren't challenged, in between there, it's been a nice 4-game stretch for them.
It has. It's been good. It's been good to see. Let's move on to March Madness. What do you say? Final 4.
Oh, man. Here we go. Final 4.
Final
How about
4.
the Pac-12, UCLA?
Pac-12. Before we get into it, though, I have to do an unveiling here. We got the Dog and Deuce bracket, annual bracket, Wall of Fame. It's a trophy I had made up. It's sweet. I'm going to unveil it right now. I'm going to place it in its rightful spot on the set behind me to where it will only be moved to get the winner's name engraved every single year. That's the only time it'll be moved, hopefully. So here it is.
This thing is sick.
This is a heavy-duty, I don't know how well you can see it. It's a heavy-duty trophy. It's got a pint of beer on the top, which I thought was just perfect for the show.
Yes.
And we've got, I think, 10 spots or 12 spots. So this can go on for over a decade, this challenge, before we have to think about adding to the Wall of Fame. But the winner of this year's bracket, and right now, Brainless Steve, coming out of nowhere, dude. He has Houston. He has Baylor. The only problem is they're on the same side of the bracket. That's the only thing holding him up. Otherwise, I think he might have this thing in the bag. But he actually has Houston in the Final 4, which is very impressive. Brainless Steve, though, if he can hold on, his name will go right here. Be the first name added to the Dog and Deuce Wall of Fame for the NCAA tournament.
But let's be clear. I mean, Hemorrhoid's in the running. He's got more max points.
The
problem.
I know. He reminds me of this like every single day. We cannot.
The problem for Brainless Steve is he went with Iowa.
I know.
So
that was a gamble.
Losses, the Hemorrhoid's in the lead.
He's not in the lead yet. I mean, it depends.
He's in the lead based on max points.
Here's the thing.
He's in the lead.
Well, yeah, but that's not the max is the max you can possibly get. It's not anything. It's not certain. Just because you have the max points, you're going to win. Let's just put it that way. Here's the thing. As a group, I think there are 12, 13 of us, 14 of us, something like that. We cannot let the Hemorrhoid win. Do you know how insufferable?
Unbearable.
It's going to be hell for the next year. Hell, he's already made this tournament hell for me.
Yes, I'm aware. I've seen some of the exchanges.
Yeah.
It's hell is
hell is
putting it mildly.
So we cannot allow this to happen. I don't know if we got to go poison some pizza in Indianapolis or what we got to do, but we got to do something. Jess is
I'm telling you right now, he's going to win. Just accept it. I'm trying to have you get ahead of it.
I can't,
so
man.
You
I can't.
You got to get ahead of it.
I can't do it. Jess is in second place. I love for the trophy, the actual trophy that we're going to order towards the end. I love for that to stay in my household. Just even though it's not mine, I still like being in the proximity of it would make me feel real good. It would give me some good luck, I think. So anyway, this is going to take its rightful place behind me in the set for here in Studio B, and it will remain there except to get engraved. And that's it. So let's talk a little Final Four basketball, shall we, James?
Yeah, we got the Final Four set. It's been a wild madness. We got Gonzaga, Baylor, UCLA, and Houston. 2 Texas teams meeting each other, and Gonzaga and UCLA meeting each other. First of all, props to UCLA, right? I mean, one of the first 4 in and one in the Final Four, only one other team. VCU did that 10 years ago. I should point out, this is the 11th straight year. I saw this the other day, where a seed greater than 5 has made the Final Four, 5 or greater. So next year, remind yourself of that, folks. I had San Diego State as my sleeper, not UCLA.
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
This is the 11th straight year a 5 seed or higher, I guess lower, whichever way you want to term it, 5, 6, 7, 8, on down the line, has made the Final Four.
A 5 seed or below?
Below, lower.
Okay. So 5 through 16.
16.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's all, there's always a surprise, right? And it feels weird to call UCLA a Cinderella story because
But they are.
I mean, they are, but just based on the pedigree of the program over the decades, it's hard. It's a very familiar term for anyone who's followed college basketball, but they absolutely are. It's fun to see the Pac-12 in there. It's super fun. College basketball is, it's something. I mean, that Michigan UCLA game was not fun. Tell me how you feel about this. So I'm watching the Jazz game last night, and the Jazz are up by 6. So it's very much, and this is in the fourth quarter, very much within reach for the Grizzlies. And it didn't feel like 6 was a lot of points at all. In college basketball, a 6-point lead feels like almost a 10-point lead.
Yeah, depending on the opponents, absolutely. I never rooted for, Suey Pig so hard as I did last week to see your Baylor team get out. And they just couldn't hit the broad side of the barn.
Nope.
I thought the officiating was terrible in that game.
Oh, we're doing that.
Well.
We're doing that.
But,
right? Yeah.
I see
if
where
they're
we're going. Even like 30% from 3-point range, Baylor's not in the Final Four. So, but
that's college basketball, dude. That's college basketball. That's what it is. It's an awful product. That's what it is.
With the few exceptions, you're absolutely right. Gonzaga's been on, and they're pretty fun to watch. But the shooting is at a premium, and the chemistry because of the one and dones seems to be null and void. Although I think the two favorites, Baylor and Gonzaga, if you look at them, there's some upperclassmen drive there. We talked about it. People who have been in the program, whether it's Davion Mitchell, even though he was a transfer, among others for Baylor, and then Timmy and the like for Gonzaga. Look, I think I'm going to predict the winner right because I think Gonzaga is going to get the better of UCLA and Baylor is going to get the better of Houston. Although I would be interested to see. That Texas showdown, Houston and Baylor, they're both defensive. So don't watch that unless Baylor's hitting threes because it could be super boring. But it's setting up for a nice and interesting matchup of two high-powered offense in Gonzaga and, a super defensive-oriented team in Houston or Baylor. That should be a fun, championship game matchup if it plays out that way.
I wanted to ask you, because I kind of, in the opening, I kind of teased that this Final Four has caused a stir in the media because I've heard some national guys kind of complaining about this, and I want to get your take. What is your take on this Final Four?
Look, the run has been fun, especially UCLA's, and it hasn't been good for my bracket with, Ohio State and Illinois going out so early, but it's been nice. Again, I think you really see teams that have good leadership succeeding. And I think the Big Ten was worn out from a tough year and a tough tournament, and hence their exit so early from the bracket with 3 number 1 seeds, and none of them made it to the Final Four. That's rough. There's no way to slice it. That's not a good showing from the Big Ten. It doesn't bother me. I don't know what they're complaining about. You have a 1, a 2, and a 1. It's not like there's a whole bunch of crazy, you have 2 of the 1s and 1 of the 2s, and then UCLA.
See, to me, and I'll just say it was on the Dan Patrick show. One of his cronies, I can't remember which one, was complaining about this, and I heard a couple other guys actually too. And I don't understand what the complaint. Isn't this why we love March Madness? Isn't this? Well,
they love it, right? They only love it to a certain extent.
They want
to see the best teams.
They want Kentucky, and they want Duke, and they want Syracuse, and they want these big name programs in North Carolina in there, and that's it. And I think I honestly think it's because if they get anyone else, they don't know anything about it. And that's my guess.
That may or may not be true. But again, out of the, what would you say? Let's see, 4, and then 4 out of the 8 best teams. by seeding, 3 of them made the Final Four. It's just that they don't like the programs that are at the top.
They don't
struggle.
They want
or
the
it's
big
unusual.
names. They want the big names. That's all they.
Right.
That's all. But the thing is, what is so unbearable about the college football playoff? Because freaking Alabama is always and Clemson are always at the end. There's no parity. This is why we love March Madness, because we're getting games like this. We're getting surprise teams popping up. That's the whole point, man. Like, so when they're sitting there saying that's when I really get the idea that maybe there is an East Coast bias, because if you're complaining that surprise teams are coming up because you don't have Kentucky in there, like, what are you talking about, man? That is, just because the name isn't the name that you're familiar with, like, does it make you feel super uncomfortable or something? To me, it was just one of the worst, not worst. It was one of the most aggravating things I'd heard when it comes to March Madness, because this is why it's so good, because you don't know what's going to happen. The parody is great, and that's why we love March Madness. And just because he's a national guy and he doesn't understand, or he doesn't know the names on any of these other teams, to me that really shows he's not really doing his job.
Well, I mean, I think he does. I think it's more shock of the Big Ten. And I mean, it's the first time ever all 4 teams are west of the Mississippi.
Yeah, but who cares? I don't care where they're from.
Well, it's the first time ever.
But but why is that a thing? Well, I mean, I know, but
it's like when the Cubs win the World Series. It's a thing. First time evers make it uncomfortable and make it different and make it unusual. And I think everyone's scrambling. I mean, let's be honest. UCLA has had a hell of a run, but one might argue that the tournament would be better. And I think it's a fair argument. Would be better if, a Michigan or a Illinois or one of those other teams was playing in it.
Why? Because I've watched Michigan basketball. It's not fun to watch. It's not good basketball.
Well, they're without Livers, so let's remember that. That's a pretty good run by them. Because I mean, it's just why it's not that, right? In any other sporting event, you're not really seeing the best teams win. You're seeing the most streaky team. I mean, I think we can say no matter what, even if UCLA wins,
isn't that the NFL though?
The national title. You can't tell me that you're going to think they're the best team in the country.
Hey, if they win it, they got that trophy.
Come on.
They're raising that trophy. They're cutting down the nets, man.
You're not going to tell me that you're going to put your mortgage payment the next time UCLA walks into the gym with Gonzaga if they upset them. And you're going to be like, yep, they're the best team for sure. I've got to go with them. They beat them once.
Scoreboard, baby. Scoreboard. That's all you got to do. Scoreboard.
I mean, I get where they're coming from in that regard.
I don't.
But
I don't
it
get
also is sort of devaluing, like you're saying, what the tournament is. The specialness of it is that you have to be locked in for several weeks in a row. There's no letdown one night and come back the next night. So it's the specialness of the tournament, and it normally plays out where the teams that we really are used to being there at least make it to the Sweet 16, etc. And this year it hasn't. And those are special years as well. It just makes for a more unusual circumstance, I think.
See, I don't like. I can understand if you're saying these aren't the funnest teams to watch. These aren't the best teams to watch. But just because they don't have the brand name to, like, when I'm sitting here listening to this guy and he's like, does anyone really care about Gonzaga? Does anyone really care about Houston and Baylor? Like, people really excited about this? It's like, dude, that is so elitist and bogus. Like, shut up. Like, yes, man. Yes. Like, this is, the reason I have a hard time getting super excited about college basketball is because I just don't think it's a very good product. But you can't tell me that having Michigan in there would make him more like, why? What about Michigan? And I don't want to, other than just the name brand, what is it about that team that would make you more excited about the Final Four? That's what was driving me crazy.
Yeah, I hear where you're coming. I see both sides of it, but I just take it for what it is.
I know.
I mean, I don't spend a whole lot of time like he did. Yeah, I do. I mean, Gonzaga has been the best team in the country this year.
Gonzaga is
lost a game.
Like, honestly,
so I don't know how. I mean, yeah, that's an exciting storyline.
There are so many storylines.
Undefeated,
right?
That's pretty special. And Baylor's been right there as well, and especially given what was it, like 10 years ago when they had players allegedly, and I think one of them is convicted, murdering each other. To see what Scott Drew, how far he's brought that program, is something special as well. Houston, I mean, Calvin Sampson wrote, say what he wants. He's always on probation for one reason or another, but his teams go far. Like they go far no matter what.
True.
And Houston isn't exactly fun to watch either, but I am sort of interested in that matchup of, especially if Baylor continues to struggle from the three, if Houston can't get them. Kind of want Houston to win.
If you can't get excited about Gonzaga, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, they are the most, as far as teams in this tournament, I watched a lot of the tournament. They are, without a doubt, the most exciting team that I've watched. They are the closest to having a cohesive unit that plays. I'm not saying they're as good as an NBA team, but they play more like an NBA team in that it's not sloppy and ugly and unbearable to watch. Like, to me, if you can't get excited to watch Gonzaga just because they're not a brand name, they're not a Michigan or a Kentucky, then I don't know what I don't get it. I don't understand.
Well, and let's be honest, they sort of are at this point.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Exactly,
Gonzaga
right.
sort of is.
They are.
Whether you like it or not, they're always. When was the last time Gonzaga wasn't in the top 10?
Good
I
point.
mean, Mark Hughes made it to, I think, like 6 straight Sweet 16s. Sure, they've never sealed the deal, so to speak. But Gonzaga, and they don't quite have the history of a Duke or a Kentucky, obviously, but they're like the second coming of Duke.
Feels like
at one point, Duke wasn't very good either,
right?
Until Coach K showed up on that. You know, they were very run of the mill. And I mean, again, like you say, that USC game, they didn't even play well, and they were up 20.
And again, that 20-point lead felt like a 50-point lead.
For sure.
You know,
for sure. So, I mean, I hear where you're coming from. It is weird though to not see. I mean, Duke wasn't even in the tournament this year, right?
Yeah.
Neither was Kentucky. So it is weird, and we all have to get used to it. But I'm sure we'll survive. We still have the madness.
I haven't gone on a rant in a while. I felt like I just had to get that out of me. It's been brewing. It's been eating at me. Anyway, let's move on. The Utes. They have their coach. They're poaching from up in Logan. Craig Smith is now the coach of the Runnin' Utes. What are your thoughts?
Look, it's always hard. You know, at least locally from his success up at Utah State, that the man can coach, right? Now he has another, hill to climb, so to speak. Winning in the Mountain West is different than winning in the Pac-12 or any other, P5 conference, Power 5 conference. It's very practical, right? And it's allowing Mark Harlan to sort of step out of the shadow, or hopefully the program to step out of the shadow of the Majerus era, which I thought was something that was important, right? But not leaving it. Like, let me ask, coaches have a very fine line to walk. Like, you can never deny Rick Majerus' success, but you can't let it be the focal point of how you run your program. And I think that would be harder than a lot of average fans think, because it seems so long ago. But the people who pay money and the people who are really into running Ute basketball are the ones who remember that like it was yesterday.
True. So, and I've heard a lot of that, like, we got to step out of Majerus' shadow. And I genuinely don't understand. So is it just the way he left the university? To me, why do we got to get out of that shadow? Like, why is it so important that we don't have any of his former players coaching? I don't understand that.
Because I think it puts an unnecessary pressure on the coach. I mean, I don't know if they'll be able to. I mean, again, Larry Krystkowiak was 180 and 130. He won 60% of his games.
His problem was his contract was absurdly high.
Truly, I would agree with that. And the transfer portals really got the better of him. But I mean, it just puts a pressure and an unexpected level of success, I think, on the future coaches. Like, there may never be a run like that again. He was always in the NCAA tournament, always winning, the WAC conference tournament and making deep runs. So it just puts unnecessary expectations on the coach, is my belief. And I think Craig Smith has his own set of expectations. I mean, let's be honest. Majerus was a great coach, will always be a great coach. He's a Hall of Famer. What he did for the University of Utah basketball program can't be overstated, right? I mean, he put them on the map in a way that Urban Meyer put the football team on the map. I mean, he was a story. And in college sports, if you don't have a coach who's a story, then you're probably not relevant. In all honesty, that's kind of how
it's
is.
True. It's true.
And so the idea to have someone follow him up in that ilk, it's double-edged sword. It could be good or bad. I prefer to just, pick someone to blaze their path. And I think Craig Smith's rise up the ladder from North Dakota to somewhere else to Utah State to here will allow him to have a depth of experience where he recognizes, people were trying to follow up Craig Smith's legacy at North Dakota. And I think the next person will be at Utah State, even though it was a short run there. So he understands building something outside of the context of the history of the program.
You bummed that we didn't get Alex Jensen, that he withdrew his name from candidacy?
Not really, because I would be bummed for him if he took that job. After putting so many years in the NBA, I want him to be a head coach. I think that helps the Utes program more. You see a sort of run of, a good player, but by no means the most talented or athletically gifted player in the history of the program, be able to go from, that to, and I think he was an all conference performer. So I'm not trying to sell him short, but let's be honest, he was limited in his athleticism, right? From that, to achieving that success at the collegiate level to rising up the NBA coaching ranks, I think that helps the Ute program as much as him being a head coach, honestly.
Yeah, it adds to the pedigree for sure. I'm actually not bummed because I'm glad we got a college guy. It's just a different world, recruiting and how you deal with players and even the plays that you draw up. Like it's such a more all-encompassing world. Whereas like Quinn Snyder, he can delegate a lot more. So to me, I just think having someone, rather than getting a first-time head coach who's coming from the NBA world, I'm glad we got a college guy who knows that world, who knows how, like you said, knows how to build a program and do all that. So, I think as far as a hire, I think it's pretty par for the course, but I don't think it's bad by any stretch. I think it's good, and we'll see what happens. We need a good 3 or 4 years to really be able to judge this, and based on the history of Utah basketball program, he might get that despite what his record is.
Yeah, I think realistically, given where the program's at, and it's not in a terrible spot. I don't think Coach Larry Kraskowiak left the Utes program high and dry by any stretch of the imagination.
I think it's in a much better spot than we thought a couple weeks ago.
For sure. And 3 years, I think it is a minimum that you have to give him to build sort of his culture. But let's be honest. He may have a little more rope than you might at other programs, but it's result-oriented business, and it will be really easy to see. And I think in his 4th year, if he's not been in the tournament at least once or twice, it may be the end of his run, but time will tell.
Time will tell. Roy Williams was so scared of this hire that he retired at North Carolina because he just knows the Utes are going to beat him in the tournament. Be run out of town.
Right. Yeah. He saw Craig Smith come across the wire. He's like, oh, Utah's on the rise again.
Out. This team, these two programs have maybe played once or twice in the history of our schools, but I'm terrified. But yeah, Roy Williams is out. We'll just real quick. I just wanted to mention that because that's the end of an era. I know you're a North Carolina fan. How you feeling?
Yeah, Roy is Roy, right? From Kansas to Carolina, he's a Carolina man through and through. What he did at Kansas was epic, and what he did in his 18 years. I do want people to recognize this is how you build winning programs, and it's really hard to do. But the one thing you need to look at, with the exception of maybe Kentucky, but now Gonzaga, Mark Few's been there a long time. Coach K at Duke, been there a long time. It's sort of crazy to imagine Roy Williams was at North Carolina for 18 years. I remember when he was coaching Kansas, and it was like, oh, he can never win the big one, blah, blah, blah. And if memory serves me, he won the championship with Kansas, coached one more year, and left to Carolina because that's where he went to school. But Carolina's had a run. Like last 40 years, they had Dean Smith and Roy Williams and few couple coaches sprinkled in there.
How do you follow that
That's what you need to look for. If you want to have an elite basketball program or football one, is stability at the coaching position. Those hires are harder to find than one might think.
It's very true. Last thing real quick. We got 7 minutes left. Opening day of baseball. How you feeling?
Oh, baby.
I know our boy Brian Priest from the Home Court Press podcast is super excited today. How about you,
I'm
James?
excited as well. And on multiple levels. I mean, you know what my belief in baseball. What is my belief that baseball provides for this country?
It's good for America. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm mistaken, your theory is that when baseball is thriving, America is thriving.
It's the truth. It's a fact. It's, or when baseball takes front and center, it seems like our country is more united than ever.
It'll never happen again. That'll never
What's
happen.
that?
Baseball will never be at the forefront ever again.
It was after 9/11, and right now they have the opportunity. That's specifically what I'm talking about during wars or national emergencies. And guess what? We're currently in one still. I know a lot of governors might lead you to believe differently, but the pandemic's still going on, and baseball is an outside event that might be able to have a little more attendance and will significantly, I think, impact whether or not NFL stadiums are full or how they are coming down in the fall. So they have the test run scenario of where we're sort of coming out of the pandemic to reunite the country in some sense of normalcy. Having said that, dear Texas Rangers, I don't think you need to have everyone there today or tomorrow. Let's use just a modicum of common sense and work our way up to a full stadium. That's all I'm asking. I hope you prove me wrong. The numbers suggest you probably won't. But let's see if they can do it, because I really believe that when people are going to baseball games and watching baseball, the country feels more united. Now, this may just be delusions of grandeur. But I think right now baseball has a unique role to sort of seize back a little of the momentum they may have lost over the last 25 years.
Yeah, they got to do something. That's for sure. They have to. But yeah, we're so close to being through this, and the fact that, like, I don't want to get all crazy. And we've done so much pandemic talk over the last year, but seriously, we're so close. Yet governors and the Texas Rangers are all like, who cares? Come on. It's like, can you just wait just a little bit longer? Let's not lift the mask mandate until at least I can get my first shot, which I can't do until weeks after the mask mandates. Like, come on. Let's not get everyone together in a stadium until we're almost there. Just be a little bit more patient. Just a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it is extremely disappointing that they would even take that risk. I don't understand the necessity to not have a more gradual approach, right? And let's hope if they are, I mean, again, it's a private business, the Texas Rangers are. Let's hope if they are packing those individuals into the stadium that they are making them wear masks for the better part of the game.
It's Texas.
Although I've watched some Jazz games. I don't know how much you pay attention to the crowd during Jazz games. Not everyone is wearing a mask at all times.
Nope.
And it's not just when they're eating or drinking. That's all I'm saying.
I don't even want to get into it because I'll go on another rant and we'll have to extend the show another hour. It's so frustrating to me. I just don't understand. Like, when we're so close, that's the thing. Like, you don't like, if you're in a marathon, you don't just, like, you're almost there. You can see the finish line. You can actually see it. You don't just say, that was far enough. Done. No, that's stupid. What are you thinking? And anyway, I could go on and on and on. It's not even a political thing. That's the thing that's so frustrating. It's just, to me, it's common sense when we're just so close.
I mean, and I guess we should applaud on that front. The Utes have the spring game and it's ticketed and they're going to have 6,500 people. They've obviously taken what we would like to see as a more gradual approach to refilling the stadiums and see how it goes. So let's hope that goes off without a hitch, and kudos to them for, being wise about how they reintroduce fans into the game.
Yeah, you got to do it. I mean, let's just be smart so we're not setting ourselves back. That's, to me, it seems pretty reasonable, but who knows?
Fingers crossed.
Real quick, man, it's as we record this, it's April Fool's Day, which makes the internet really tough sometimes on April Fool's Day. Have you ever got by an April Fool's joke?
Yeah, I had a good one. One time I was staying at my friend's house, and I might have told you this, and he got up way early, right? And so I went in for the morning, bathroom ritual, and he was tucked up underneath the sink, like in the cupboards beneath it. And what he would do was when I would turn on the sink, he would pull the drain. So the drain was going up and down. And I had no idea that he was there, and it got me pretty good. I mean, I wasn't scared. I was more like, this is bizarre. What is going on?
I think
pipes are going to break type scenario. So it was more of a prank than a scare, but that's probably one of the better ones where I had normally I have an inclination it's coming.
Right.
This one, I had no idea.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I might have to steal that for my kids.
You should. It is good because if you have no idea, it's pretty weird.
That's funny. I like that one.
What about yourself?
Well, one of the better ones I heard, it was years and years ago. I didn't get got by it, but it was during a Jazz game. The Jazz were playing on April Fool's Day, and I was watching it on TV, and they did a whole thing where they were going to build an Ostertag statue to put right next to John and Carl. And like they even had Ostertag, they interviewed him and everything, and they interviewed John and Carl. Like it was really well done. If you weren't paying attention, you would honest to God believe that they were building a Greg Ostertag statue right outside.
That is good. I don't remember that one.
That was a good one. Another one, and this is, I think, the old 1320 KFan years ago, like when I was in college. They said that the Jazz were going to be sold and moved to, this may have been right after Seattle left. I can't remember when it was, but I think they were going to move it to Seattle or something like that. And I was freaked out, dude. Like the whole day I was so pissed off, and I was like, why is nobody talking about this? Why is nobody upset? And I got bad on that one. So those are the only two, but the Ostertag one was great.
Another good sports one, and I'm sure you've seen this one, is Cuban, because this is back when he was a little more vocal and getting fined all the time. And he had a fake referee, and he went out there and was like acting like he was getting a fist fight with him.
I remember that one.
That one, because this is when, I mean, props to Mark Cuban. Like he's still vocal, but there was a good 4-year run where it was like he was giving the NBA a couple $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this was like in the prime where you could really imagine that he might do something like this.
That's great.
I think that one got me good, a sports one. That was a pretty good one.
That was a good, and because it's kind of poking fun at himself, that's fun. Like it's a little self-awareness there. I think that's great. Yeah, that's fun. But I actually like to hear. I don't really like going on the internet for April Fool's Day because it's just constant, but I would like to hear if anyone has any good pranks that they've been pranked by or have done to other people. I kind of like pranks, man. I think they're fun. I think they're super fun. So hit us up and let us know. In the meantime, man, we are talking Jazz basketball all the way to the, down the stretch. We'll be here next week talking Jazz basketball. We'll be talking about what happened in the championship game for March Madness. So that finale's coming. We're going to get a name engraved on the old trophy behind me. So yeah, come back next week, man. We'll be talking lots of sports. We want to know what you think of everything going on in the world of sports or anything otherwise. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
We will see you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your madness.